Okay, when you decide, I am ready. Okay. Online education is a novel and a common idea, and I certainly am an advocate for it. I believe that it's an opportunity for educational studies, and it's also a resource for subjects and interests that people may not have access to. However, I do agree that online education will never replace traditional universities, and I believe that for two main reasons. Firstly, because as good as online education is, it simply can't replicate a mentoring relationship that traditional education can. Not only this, but online education also doesn't have the certification power of brick and mortar institutions. But firstly, I want to go into a little bit more about the idea of mentoring relationships. And what I mean by this is a student-teacher interested that occurs outside of the classroom. While I am a student, I get it to us new experiences, and it perhaps provide advice of pursuit of future goals. Now, this often happens in face-to-face settings, and it can make a huge difference in educational outcomes. This is something that I can personally attest to. When I was taking classes in my MBA degree, I had an excellent mentoring relationship with my professors. Not only did he teach me good at classes, but he also sat down outside of the classes, and at the time where I was unsure of my career path, he helped me to map out my career goals. I also provided me more insight into options that I hadn't considered beforehand, and this is ultimately play an incredibly huge role in where I am today and the career path, and I choose to take and the support of mentoring relationships. There are numerous studies that show that these relationships have highly beneficial impact on graduation rates, completion rates, and just overall educational quality. And so, mentors and someone who knows and someone who has high expectations, you can often drive you further to success. And this is something that online education just can't replicate compared to traditional universities, because they are simply isn't enough face-to-face interaction. And only this, but online education also doesn't offer the certification power of a brick and mortar institution. So students often go to universities for education, but aside for that, they also go to universities to the certification to show that they've earned the education and earned their degree. Now, this simply doesn't exist in online education, because it's more difficult to assess for understanding, and because there's a lack of social grooming in this aspect of certification of education. So when it comes to assessment and understanding, often means exam. Now, in a traditional university where you have in-person classes, you can have proctor and teacher administer exams and ensure that the grade a student gets is what he or she truly deserves, and so they can be certified for their achievement in a class. However, in online education, where you can offer a mode of assessment, you simply can be sure that the person on the other side of the screen is taking the exam faithfully and taking it with integrity. And so in certification in regard to assessment of understanding, simply maybe a little bit more suspect of online education. But you are also getting of certification in online education is socialization in traditional universities. You have young adults and students that commingle with each other, and this further growth and expansion of interest among all the students. This is something that can exist on online education, because it's a very set, and when you are seen up to take a class, often the student interaction that traditional universities offer. And so in terms of certification, you are simply lacking a little bit more of in socialization. So while I am a huge advocate for online education, I don't believe that is a threat to traditional universities. And this is because online education simply can replicate the mentoring relationship that traditional universities offer, because they don't have the face-to-face interaction. And aside from this, online education also lacks the certification power of traditional universities, because there is a lack of assessment and understanding and a lack of social grooming. So while While online education is only up and ground, I do believe that traditional universities are here to stay forever. Thank you for listening.